Oh no, what's going on? Hey, yeah, perfect. Oh, it keeps doing that. All right, well, I'm gonna stop clicking around because it stops the GIFs every time I click something. So everybody go ahead and just please go ahead and just check in. We'll talk about this in a second, and then I know there's a formal introduction, but just using all the time that we have with each other to kind of really get to know each other as much as we can in this virtual space. We'll talk a lot about that. So hi, Cecilin, that's a beautiful name. Joanna, I know we met. Hi, Karina, Jackie, welcome. And I think we got about, how many people we got going on in here? We got 20 people. So yeah, go ahead and just check in via the chat as you're coming into the space. We're gonna talk to each other today. We're gonna use kind of multiple forms of engagement on the Zoom platform. So get comfortable, but go ahead and just introduce yourself to the group.
All right, while everyone's introducing themselves, I will go ahead and read our intros, if that's all right with you. All right, so my name is Joanna Schultz, and I'm your virtual room host for today's workshop, Program Quality Beyond the Bell. I would like to remind you all of a few items before our presenter gets started. Please feel free to use the chat box throughout the session and keep yourself on mute while the presenter is speaking. As a reminder, a link to our conference agreements can be found in the chat box, which I will make sure they're there. At the end of the workshop session, the presenter will stay online for 20 minutes for question and answer from participants. Also, do not forget to fill out the evaluation form at the end of the workshop session to get entered in our drawing for door prizes at the closing session of the day today. So thank you all for being here. Looks like we've got quite a few, so I think we're probably ready to get started. So anyway, thanks all for being here. Our workshop today is called Program Quality Beyond the Bell, and it is being facilitated by Fausto A. Lopez. Fausto is a Spanish-speaking senior technical assistance consultant working on school climate, social and emotional learning, and after-school and expanded learning initiatives at AIR. Lopez works with education systems to design resources and tools that support programs in the development, implementation, and applied evaluation of program offerings. Lopez specializes in 21st century community learning centers, Gear Up, and Upward Bound initiatives. He is nationally recognized presenter on youth development and related education topics. He facilitates national, regional, and statewide educational workshops that bring the most up-to-date research to the field in exciting and relatable formats, such as Beyond the Bell Toolkit. He holds a master's degree in education psychology, youth development from the University of Illinois at Chicago. So if everyone will please join me in welcoming Fausto, and I will let you take it away.
All right, welcome everybody. Fausto Lopez calling in, joining you all from Chicago, Illinois, where I do represent the American Institutes for Research, where we talk about making research relevant. We joke around in the out of school time space or the informal space as we read the research so you don't have to, and really put it into play, right? So we're gonna unpack all of that today. Even this idea of what we're doing right now, which is just our general check-ins, and thanks for joining on the camera. I'm already gonna say again, we're joining the space in different ways. Completely understand that we're all adjusting to that and we're all calling in from different places. So again, camera is cool. I can't necessarily see you all, especially as I'm going to navigate across that. So feel free to not be on camera, but again, as I will scroll through there, I'm happy to see your smiley face, and that works too. We are going to have an opportunity to touch base with each other, get into some of this work, applied work, talk about it. When we talk about quality, we'll talk about what that really means in a way, what that means to you, what that means to the research, what that means to me as someone who has implemented programs over the years with young people and now do a lot of training across the country, mostly now in this little box, in this little nook here in Chicago, but still bring the forefront of, again, youth development, science of learning and development, social emotional learning, restorative practices, and the different ways that we really engage our young people in skill and competency development in an asset-based way. All right, let me see what happens here. Thanks everybody for checking in. Let me see here, my sequence here as I try to click around. Oh, okay, here we go. So we're here. We're gonna talk about quality. I am also going to be using a Jamboard at one point. So everybody in the chat box, let me know if you have worked with Jamboard. Go ahead, I'll wait. Couple yes, no, why, and love Jamboard. Sweet, thank you, Amy. We're going to navigate there. So with that said, just a little perfect. We're gonna work on it together. We'll see the kind of the utility of it. I have a PowerPoint. But obviously, as we navigate across different screens, be prepared for that too. I just want to warn everyone, right? I want to be transparent about how we come into space, that I'll be sharing my screen there too. So at some point, we will get out of this PowerPoint and I will have to we'll just kind of jump around a bit, okay? We're going to keep ourselves on our toes. This is what we're going to do really quickly, the PowerPoint section of this work here. Really just to let you know a little bit about Beyond the Bell. I'm already going to ask you all in the chat box, let me know if you have ever heard of Beyond the Bell. Again, there's different iterations of Beyond the Bell, like the Out of School Time Network. Thank you, Joanna. Out of School Time Network in California or in LA specifically is the Beyond the Bell program. We are the Beyond the Bell Toolkit. Perfect. Welcome, welcome. Yes, heard of it. Great. We are the Toolkit, and I'll tell you a second about that. Grounded in youth development. We're going to talk about youth development and the concept of quality, how that is, we're working to the same end and working smart, not hard. Really living in the quality pyramid. We're going to talk then about engagement, or then this idea of skill building, what we engage our young people in after we establish the appropriate climate, environment of our programming. And then we're going to talk about this concept of enrichment, just because it puts us in a more explicit space. And again, we're always having talked about this virtual conundrum that we're in as we talk about engagement and all of this work. All right, we're going to jump right in. We have limited time, right? But we have a lot to unpack. So again, everybody, as you're coming into this space, you know, we just want to make sure that we all understand that there's going to be a lot. I'm from Chicago. I drink a lot of coffee. I'll be talking pretty quickly. I apologize for that on the get-go. I'm going to use my own self-management to regulate myself in these moments, right? But just know that it's because I'm really excited about this work and we just have a lot to unpack. So again, quickly, with that said, one of the applied research bases that we just did through those GIFs is really already start engaging in what CASEL, or the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, talks about as welcoming rituals, right? The way that we establish safety in spaces, check in with people around safety, don't assume safety, get into building the vocabulary around emotional intelligence, the outcomes, as we'll talk about, or outputs, as we engage young people in the process of social and emotional learning and the different activities or strategies that fortify this. So one of the things that underpins the research of doing that is that, again, depending on the young kids you're working with or the age, we are then building vocabulary, trying to push into spaces of identifying, because that's going to help with self-awareness, right? We need to know what we're aware of. We need to know that. We need to then provide different diction to, or options to how we express that. So that's why these mood boards have always kind of worked. How many of you guys are working with mood boards? Go ahead, put it in the chat box because I can't see everybody. Anybody doing any mood boarding? Mood boarding. A bit, perfect. All right, well, let's go ahead and start our applied mood boarding, because talking at times about safety is a weird. I'm gonna go ahead and share the Jamboard. I just shared the Jamboard. I'm gonna give everybody a second to click there. Make sure that we can do some tech situations here. I see people who are joining. Oh, I'm going to have to stop sharing that screen. All right. I got some friends on Jamboard, everybody here. So we're going to talk about in a second about the youth development pyramid. But even before we get into this construct of safety, again, which is safety is the base, it's from Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, good applied youth development or educational psychology of how we set the learning, the tone in the learning environment. And so what you're going to see here for everybody who's now joining, thank you, who's joining the Jamboard, we're going to live, actually, where's my annotation pieces? Oh, it gets moved around when you have a lot of things going on. Okay, we're going to live to your left. Okay, there's a opportunity. You can go ahead and click away from the back JPEG. What you're going to do is actually click on the sticky note, which is third. There's the eraser at the top. There is your select, and there is a sticky note. You can go ahead and you can go ahead and click on the sticky note. And in those 4 quadrants, I'd like you to just jam a bit. Again, using those color codes. What do you need right now to feel safe in this space? What do you need to have fun in this space? What do you need to fully engage in this space? And what would you say you need to learn in this space? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just how you feel and how you're feeling coming in and your needs. So this is what we'll call as collective norm making. So go ahead and start populating those. Let me know if anybody's having any issues. All right, here we go. And you go ahead and place them, or I can place them if you make sure to color code them so I know where they should go. So we're going with orange for to learn, to have fun, to fully engage. Great. Respect is always a great start. Thank you. Again, and this is another great way because this is anonymous. So another way to create safety, especially using these virtual tools that already give you anonymity in the spaces. Again, we can allow people to express their needs across these domains or any of the prompts that you put up at the top of those virtual sticky pads, right? To allow everyone to identify what they might need. And us as facilitators of learning, interaction, yep, we're gonna do some group pieces. We're gonna use this as some interaction as much as we can. Hands-on resources go over perfectly. I have lots of tools to go into in a second. Jamboard is great. All right, check the box. I've already hit the engagement box. All right, guided question and prompts, we're gonna get there too. So again, these already showing in motion. If you like this kind of quick check-in way of doing it, right, you can change those prompts as you like, depending on the topic of the day, depending on what you're going into in the content with the young people, or even when we talk about just working with our colleagues and peers and teams, especially since we are not potentially all centralized in the same place. This is also a shared document, right? So nothing goes away. Be careful not to hit delete. Can't do anything about that. So again, once you open it as a shared doc, there is some great pieces there, but always have to be careful not to hit the red button, right? Hands-on, hopefully we're gonna do some virtual on. We got some QA that's already scheduled. We have a full stomach. Okay, we're gonna make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get some snacks. Respect. Perfect, they're coming in now. This is the idea here. So go ahead and take a look at what people are adding. Obviously, you can go ahead and add fun examples. We're going to hopefully share those fun examples. You will share fun examples with each other. All right, so keep it coming. If anybody wants to go ahead and navigate really quickly to Jamboard 2, so at the top, you're going to see 2 arrows. You should see 2 of 17. And already everyone who's looking at my screen will see this. Again, this is putting into play check-ins, right? How many of you guys did check-ins in person? Go ahead and put it in the Jamboard. In the chat if you were doing check-ins with your young people before. Yes, no, maybe so. Where are you doing check-ins? Yes, Chris, thank you. Again, not a new practice, just the idea that we're just potentially not in person. So we cannot skip over safety. We cannot skip over the same constructs that we had in person. We need to now push our level of intentionality even further because we don't know what's always happening behind Fausto's back wall. Most again, the conundrum all over the country is we don't even know if Fausto will turn on his camera, right? Whether or not what's happening, or is he engaged? Is he not on his camera because he's like this, or is he not on his camera because he's like this, or is he half asleep? Again, this idea of how we keep everybody in this virtual space engaged, actively participating, not just there, and pushing that. So there's many different ways. We've always taught about these check-ins around, the medicine wheel, ways of just checking in specifically to these 4 spaces. Even before SEL became the hot thing, this was something that we have always pulled from our First Nation community building aspects of how we get into space and into community with people, the learning community, out of school time enrichment community. All of them are communities. They're super important. And then now we have these virtual. So how many of you guys are doing any of these like cool virtual check-ins, kind of like the GIF or like the llama or emoticons? Obviously, there is the obvious mood meter that is from the Yale School of Emotional Intelligence. How many of you guys are doing any of that? I can't tell if those yeses are from before, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and tell me if you are using any of the interactive mood meters. And you can go ahead and unmute. We can attempt to first unmute. No, just in person. Okay, thanks, Chris. Yes, Deborah, perfect. There's a slew of them that's becoming even its own type of resource sharing, is getting the cool, the right one, right? And keeping the young people on their toes. And also graduating it. I'm going to ask everyone who's on my Jamboard with me in Jamboard to go to Jamboard 3. To really then understand that the embedding of this can live in CASTLE's 3 signature SEL practices. So when we think about quality in a second, when I go back to the PowerPoint of how we set up, but if we're engaging young people at the top of the pyramid or through the supportive peer structures to engage in this, CASTLE has a really great resource that explains different activities on top of these check-ins that help you build meaningful rituals, welcoming, inclusive activities so that young people, again, feel safe enough, again, in person, to get into community with folks in this virtual space. So hopefully maybe, again, actively participate or turn on their camera, right? It looks different for all of us. But the idea that it lives in this idea of modularizing how to implement SEL. And we'll get into this SEL in a second. All right, thanks for doing that. I'm going to shift back to the PowerPoint. Oops. This is an unfortunate part of the clunkiness that I was talking about, because when you have to go back and forth between PowerPoints. All right, so let's get back into this. The toolkit, based in research, we again designed for the out of school time field. This isn't a let's borrow from somewhere else. This was incubated around its additions and iterations to support out of school time explicitly, or the informal enrichment, after school, hangout club, youth worker world, right? That's what we do. And thus this toolkit was always very focused and specialized in that, including 96 tools that support implementation, right? And that is always a nutty little thing. So we frame it all under continuous improvement, because we know youth work is all about the pivot. It's all about what's happening from program to program, what's happening from young person to young person, or groups of young people, activity to activity, site to site. The variance keeps us right on our toes, and that's why they pay us the big bucks. To keep ourselves nimble in a way, we look about it as a cycle. We talk about it as continuous improvement. It's not also a new term, but again, the toolkit is structured across the tools to help us think how we're thinking about developing, how we're being nimble in implementation, and how we are invigorating evaluation, because evaluation is not necessarily that big evaluation that you might have an external vendor to do for you, or again, reports. It's really about how we do that progress monitoring, so that improvement is not long-term improvement, it's more quick burst improvement, so that that's how we stay responsive to young people, our communities, our schools, the varying, changing priorities of schools, or again, of families and whatnot, right? And including a pandemic, right? It just keeps us moving there. Now, first question I always like to start when we start talking about this concept of quality is, how many of you run a quality program? So go ahead, and I'll take some yeses. If you want to unmute, I'll obviously take it in the group chat. But how many of you will own that you run a quality program? Who's running a quality program? Yes, sorry, Amy own it. I think that just came. Yep, Amy owns running. We believe we do, Tyler. I like to believe. Sure, hope so. Love it. Again, yes. Some of it's going to live in your intention. Some of it's going to live in your heart. But at the end of the day, we go back to that data component. Continuous improvement is, how do we know, right? And that's where we've always lived in this quality space. We know what it is to be a good youth worker, and in a way we have a lot of training, we have a lot of quality standards that support how to professionalize or get youth workers to crystallize into someone who understands the why we have to do this work, why we have to be so intentional. And we'll talk about then in a quick second what that looks like. So this is when we talk about quality in out of school time, again, like aligning the research base to practice, like what we've always done in practice is just know that, again, some of our policies in 21st in out of school time just inherently promotes these things, right? Like we actually have to write in our proposals for our money that we're going to be doing these things. So there is a deliverable lever here for why youth development, or why some of these structures that support positive development of young people. But at the end of the day, that's also why we have those quality structures, because we know that that's the stuff that has to happen along the way. That's going to be the grout that holds everything together, that allows for differentiation and support amongst all of our young people and all of their varying psychologies and challenges and stressors and traumas, or just even they're just positive situations that we also are there to support. So we've always known around the research that we have to create safety. So again, how we create safety when we were always in person with each other, some of those constructs were very clear, right? Making sure there were signs and everyone knew how to do things. But the psychological safety in safe environment continues to be right at the pulse in the middle of a pandemic, most definitely just depending on the developmental trajectories of our young people and what's going on in their lives, and thus how we show up. So again, there is no jumping to the top here. We have to make sure that we set that tone for that. Then we have to figure out also that there are indicators for how we do supportive environments. And so there's a lot of really great work, and you're going to hear this later, around developmental relationships. A lot of really great guidance that's coming out of the Search Institute of now how we support, how we actually put this into play, how we actually encourage, show care, share power with our young people. Getting them so that they can work together, so they can put into practice social awareness, those relationship skills, that self-awareness and management, all in play through the interactions with their peers, experientially, with caring adults, right, that we have to train so that we can get them to the top, to the pinnacle of engagement, so that their cognitive abilities are ready to go and ready to absorb all of the intentional programming and activities that we put into play. And we're going to talk about those in a second too. So this is what we call the Youth Program Quality Pyramid. It is from the Weichert Center for Youth Program Quality, which is an offshoot of the Forum for Youth Investment. They have shaped how we think and how we implement and how we prepare our young people, how we prepare our staff to implement these type of programming over the years using the Youth Program Quality Assessment, which is all I'm going to talk about there. Because what we have is that, again, this is just a research base. So here's going to be the first opportunity to drop, and we're going to try you all doing an activity. I need to go to here we go. I'm going to drop in a youth development checklist into the chat. So in the chat box, you all should see tool 63 from the Beyond the Bell Toolkit. Let's just make sure that everybody can open it. Can I get some thumbs up for anybody who's on the camera, or some yeses? I'll take whatever. Tyler, can you access that? I see you. Anna, I see you. Do you see the tool? Yes, Joanna? Everybody else? I have a plan B. You always have to have plan A's.
On it here.
No worries, no worries. Let's just make sure that everybody can get to it's going to be kind of dependent. If not, then let me stop sharing for 1 second, because I am going to go ahead and get the link here. Copy a link. All right, so another big in the moment situation is be prepared for everything, right? So what I went ahead and did, even though, okay, Tyler, you got it, but just in case, folks, if those file shares happen not to work, and again, as we work with young people, another way that I have found to centralize that is, again, just create a Google folder. They're all there. Hopefully you can navigate that. Always make sure to check the permissions on that. So has everyone been able to access tool? Again, we're looking at tool 63. If you're opening up now the Google share folder, you're looking still at tool 63, which is the youth development checklist. You're going to see some domains similar to what I'm going to put back on my screen in 1 second. around, again, the applied constructs of youth development. And so here, this is a quick diagnostic for you or anyone in your team, and I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to take a moment to do the diagnostic. It's a baseline diagnostic. You see that the scales are not super complicated, so I'm not going to school you on the scales. The question is just, are you doing this? Are you not doing this? Or how are, or maybe you're thinking about doing it, right? So go ahead and take that opportunity to do that. I need you to score yourself, at least get some yeses or nos in there, because then we're going to break you up into groups, and you are just going to talk about your programming. Like, what were the yeses? What were the nos? So go ahead. We're going to take about 5 minutes to just do a baseline quick yes, no, you're doing it, you're not doing it, with using the checklist. Let me make sure I am responding to everyone here. In a second, we're going to take 5 minutes so everybody, so they can do their, and then we'll break out in about 5 minutes. So I will interrupt you in 5 minutes. Please go through the checklist. Great, thank you, Amy. The PQA is based not on this tool, but the PQA is based on youth development. So applied research about positive youth development. So both of these tools are meant to reinforce or have a good understanding. Now the YPQA process, that's a different story. Happy to talk about that on the breakouts or in the QA later, about how this can support the YPQI process technically. All right, let's just take some moments again, you should be just kind of going through it quickly. Yes, no, you're doing it, because you're just going to need that information to talk to a new friend in a second. All right, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. We're gonna bring it back. I'm not sure if you guys can hear my music, but again, another way of just integrating pieces here is to give everybody an opportunity to reflect. We are going to go ahead and again, I don't want to overcomplicate this. Again, opportunity to mimic us in person and everybody in their heads, we're in a big room together, right? And we're a smaller type conference room when we all hang out in hotel rooms and banquet halls and drink bad coffee, as we were talking about, Joanna. And and right now I would love one of those cup of coffees. So we're going to just give this opportunity. Again, just the idea here is there are yeses or nos, various domains around youth development in there. What we really want to do here is then really think about, like, how many yeses did you have? Did you have all yeses? How many nos? What were the critical areas that you usually focus on in your program? And we're going to have 6 minutes. So it should be dyads because of the level of the group. So it's about 3 minutes each to share. We're going to do it just like if we were in person. It's kind of like speed dating. Talk to each other, meet a new person that's on this call, share what you're doing around youth development, and then we're going to bring it back and contextualize it and see how many people all had yeses and how many people all had nos and who needs to help me write a book. All right, so let's do it. Let's jump into these groups. We're going to have 6 minutes, 3 minutes each to talk, please, and just try to divvy that up. And we'll come back and I'll see you in 6 minutes. Hey, August. Oh, she left. All right, Amy, I think it's just you and me. And you don't have to talk to me. No worries. I know you're busy, so I'm just saying.
No worries, just making sure everyone's not like alone in their room.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I moved Joanna because she was in a room of 3 and August was a newcomer. So now they're in a room together. So perfect. It looks like 2 in each room.
All right. Hopefully they were all able to download that thing. It's always a big, glad I thought about the Google piece though, because it's always
Let's see. I have a Tyler Healy asking for help in room 10. Can I move you there really fast to talk to
Sure,
him?
yeah, let's do it. Yep.
All right. Did you get an invite?
No, not that I see.
All right, 1 second.
Oh, there you go, John. All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, so again, I'm gonna just, in the interest of time, who can unmute themselves who had all yeses? All yeses. You only unmute yourself if you had all yeses. Okay, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you had all no's. Gail, yes, sweet. Gail, all right, perfect. That's awesome. That's exactly what we want. We want to reach for success, but one of the things that we just talked about in my group is like, I could say all yes, right? That could be my bias from my role, from my perspective. One of the beauties of this quick diagnostic, not this like, let's take a whole day. Again, there are other more structured processes that I'm trained in, but that's not what we're talking about today. At times, it's more about how do we get pulse checks? How do we stay at the pulse of programming, at the little nuances? One, yes or no's. Fausto, Gail has all yeses. Fausto's in her team and he has some no's. What's up here? Why do you see that differently than me, Gail, who's in your team? I'm not saying that it's not about disagreement, is that can inform aha moments, improvement, right? Oh, I just see that differently. We talked about in my group with Tyler and sorry, I can't remember. I cannot recall. It was Tyler and I can't see you. Okay, well, it was Tyler. Tyler was definitely there. And Chris, about then potentially if you could use this because you have the Word document of this tool. That's a benefit of the tools from Beyond the Bell. They're malleable. These are just templates. You can do this with your staff. You could do this with leadership. You can include some young people. So like staff said, we're doing awesome here. Get young people to just do a quick yes or no, and maybe there's going to be some different insight to how the adults are looking at it. That is not another survey. Because again, I know we have feedback loops that are young people. This can just help structure informally these conversations. So again, we talk about program improvements. Sometimes we talk about just program alterations. That's going to be what we need to do to just change how I engage Karina and Pamela versus Tyler and Amy, because that's how we have to do it, right? Or across our activities, different ways of using this tool. We designed all the tools to be a little malleable. Depends on when you want to do them. We have people who have said, I use this for onboarding because at least it tells, my August, as he's now becoming a new youth worker, that this is now the breadth of what it was that I'm supposed to be doing when I talk about this concept of youth development or whatnot. Idea here, again, you have to have all these yeses, you have to have all no's, or you have to have people reflect on all of these domains. This is comprehensive. We talk with Tyler, you have the Word document. You can say, we just want to focus on welcoming environment. Bam, let's focus on that. How do we all think we're doing here? And then work on, again, some improvements. It doesn't always have to be the full piece. That's why these tools are meant to kind of just really hit you where you are or where you or your staff are. And that's why you get the Word document to go ahead and delete, change things as you might see fit. And my mouse isn't working. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, let me get back into my PowerPoint here, bring this kind of together a little bit here. All right, so now I really want you guys, please unmute yourself, because one of the things that we got to start talking about here, and I'm not going to go full screen because I'm going to keep again, quality. We now know safety. There are different ways of ensuring safety. You guys just went into some indicators. Hopefully, yes, you guys had all of those safety checks, because again, we've always been really good. Yep, thank you. Really making sure that that's what we have always been promoting. Again, obviously physical, but obviously as we work ourselves through our grouping strategies, get into these developmental relationships here and the peer interaction and positive interaction, right? With adults is right here, right? When you talk about, okay, we're gonna go there, but we're gonna not just kind of jump to this engagement piece, because when we talk about quality, you're gonna see that this is called a theory of change. When we talk about community youth development, and I'm not going to stress too much the idea that young people come to our program. Different communities have varying contexts, including their school community, their neighborhood, their tribe, their area, their peer group, whatever you can conceptualize as community. Our research is clear that our young people have to come to program to reap benefits. They're not there, right? So we've always been stressed out about meeting our 30, 60, our dosage, but at the end of the day, we just also, because we care about them, we want them to be with us, right? Now, we talk about those three that I just went through super quick as things that meet us at the door, right? Or we are embedded in the community context potentially, right? We don't necessarily have control over those. We work towards them. We work to meet their needs, to fill the gaps, to do the work that we are, again, paid the big bucks to do. What we have control over is program quality. And so thus in this theory of change, we can even program quality puts us in an adaptive mindset across those three other boxes, but just knowing that in our locus of control, we have control over this pyramid here, that you can superimpose this pyramid just in a very colorful Weichert way into here. Now that pyramid, you see these little ripples here that I'm not going to stress too much on, are those organizational processes. You can't see, yeah, I see you, Pamela, it's too small. But the idea is, if you to see this bigger, this is again at our levels also how we understand that the pyramid just doesn't happen. We have to have good organizational structures in place that support staff in the implementation of these quality constructs. And some of these tools can support those good policies and procedures. We're going to live here for a second, and I wanted everybody to really quickly unmute yourself. What are these positive outcomes? So you saw the different factors that get us to the end of the rainbow, right? But now we're here at the end of the rainbow. We're at the top of the pyramid. We are engaging our young people now, right? We set up, what are these outcomes? Go ahead, unmute yourself. Let me know what are you guys working towards with your young people? What are these amazing things, please? And please bring them to COVID constructs now too, because even just getting them to turn on their camera is fair.
Increase self-esteem.
Self-esteem. You picked an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else we got?
Engaging in healthy lifestyle choices.
Healthy lifestyle choices that I am still fighting myself at 40, right? So sometimes we expect our young people to make these responsible decisions when I am buying too many shoes during my COVID little hiatus. What else? What else are we working towards?
Healthy relationships.
Healthy relationships, awesome. Which lives almost purely in self-advocacy, efficacy. Again, not easy ones, but again, great goals, great outcomes that we want to shoot towards. What else?
Keeping engaged.
Engagement, perfect. And then even peeling that onion of engagement. What does that mean, right? And how do we track it now that potentially they're not in front of us? Or can we use what we had in person times and start bringing it into this synchronous, asynchronous space to start figuring out how we measure, reimagine engagement, right? I know you guys are reimagining after school. What else? What else? What else are we shooting for?
Confidence and competence.
Competence, definitely. Okay, I know we're please.
Getting them to be more independent and more confident.
Confidence, independence, leadership even, we hear that thrown out a lot now too. There's a lot of different types of leaders, as we all know, and some of them may not want to be the types that we want to be. Okay, pushing ourselves again. We have all heard of social emotional learning, the process of engaging through CASEL's 5, as we call them, the collaborative through social and emotional learning is, again, some of them are what you put into, or some even the gray areas of some of the terms. What you're going to see actually in your conference folder or that Google shared doc is a cheat sheet, because the idea here is really always thinking through not just that these competencies or skill sets exist or other frameworks like 21st century skills explicitly, is that as we think about being intentional about our engagement, we have to be very intentional about how we structure those engagement opportunities to promote these type of skill pieces. And so you're going to see in your folder, which I'm just going to mimic here. I hope you can see that. You're going to see a slew of tools that are going to help support you through this process that, again, are designed to be for planning around this. And one of the clear ones that, again, we're going to navigate back to the Jamboard to do. So everybody go back to your Jamboard. Actually, I'm going to drop the link back in there for everybody, just in case you just joined, because that's how this thing works. Where is it? Oh, no, not to Amy. Okay, here's the Jamboard link for everybody. We're going to go to Jamboard number 6. This is what we call intentional skill building. This idea of making sure that you see and are clear about what are the connections between learning. And here, usually I say bust out the skill sheet, the cheat sheet out of your folder, or if you are at the Google site, I'm not going to drop it in the chat because you don't necessarily need it. We're just going to mimic this idea. You're going to go ahead And in the limited time we have left, we're going to start we want to just make these connections towards learning. On Jamboard 6 and 7, you see a grid, very simple grid, right? Go ahead and flip through both of those and add as many learning outcomes, applied skills that you think come out. And let's just see if we can populate this so that we can write a good book together about how our work hits across all content areas. And again, I took the liberty of just populating a few of what I would call general activities that we tend to do in programming. So don't think that it's an exhaustive list, but go ahead and place it wherever you think it should go to, please, because we want to be very explicit. And then so that hopefully if I share this out when I share this link, or you keep this link, we're going to have all these amazing ideas across things that you might be doing already with young people, maybe want to do with young people. And then I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a spoiler saying that I have these tools that can help you then write it all out, because the tools that I'm going to be sending you or that you have access to, that this is actually a screenshot of, is meant at the end of the day, we need to plan big, we need to innovate big, but we need to capture our great ideas. And so our tools are just meant to be a place to house the ideas. These Jamboards, obviously, if you have the luxury of being in person, are great ways to just get big ideas out, make these clear connections. You know, sometimes we need to be at a meta level to really see the mapping of it all, and that's what we want to do. And again, leveraging Jamboard for this purpose is just here today. So again, keep jamming. I wish I could play some. Again, if you want to navigate to 7, for those who are, again, maybe you're like, oh, I don't ever do comics. Okay, well, maybe you've done any of these other ones. Maybe you've done some journalism, photography, obviously sports. Let's see if we can populate some of these so we can really be clear and explicit about the great connections towards learning. Yeah, just go ahead and plot them. Recipe writing, yeah, I mean, that's an important one right now. A lot of people talking about culturally responsive practices. Oh, like, you know, baking, or this idea of cooking is huge. Across cultures, how do we get them to like own their traditions and beautiful flavor profiles? Again, you on your own, if you're in the Jamboard, can just go to 7 and start populating 7. I'm showing you it's looking pretty empty, but it's okay. We don't have to do it all. It doesn't have to, does not have to be exhaustive today. This is just about building the muscle memory here around some of these planning tools. This is really great. This is looking wonderful. I love the writing lyrics. I love reviewing lyrics. Sometimes I'm amazed, you know, I love how funny it is to review lyrics with young people. And then you're getting them to like say what they think the song is saying, and then how wrong a lot of them are about the lyrics that they're shooting back and forth. And again, that's between appropriate or just idea that sometimes they just are super wrong about the lyrics that they think that they are owning. It's pretty hilarious sometimes when you break that and think about literacy like that, and identifying songs that they like, really getting them to think through it. This is looking really great here. Keep it coming. Again, we got we got sports trivia and history is great. I love that. For those, I would have navigated to whoever added to your activity, like gangbusters if you put trivia. Yeah, keep it coming. Cash management, I see that one. Cash, yes, right. For the little entrepreneurs out there. Perfect, keep it coming. Again, we're just gonna keep jamming through the end. Like I said, the idea here is just to see this experientially. The tools that we have that I'm already shared with you, which is already, again, will guide you through this. This one is called intentional skill building. Oh, I'm getting a chat here. Is on my Explorer. Oh, you don't see oh, wait, you do not see the Jamboard? Was I thinking you were looking at the Jamboard the whole time? Oh, there's the Jamboard. Thank you for dinging me. Yep. Yep. And we're getting towards the Q&A. So I know I want to respect time. Keep it coming. Again, this is pretty much, yep, look at that. This is meant to archive our work together. Drumming. Thank you, Gail. Yes. Talk about time, you know, so much math in drumming, so much history in drumming, depending on which type of drums. So much science when you break down the sound constructs. I'm sure there's some ELA, but it's escaping me at the moment. Someone drop if you got a good one for drumming. Guess you could always write something about drumming. John Bonham versus John Fishman. I'll go with that. Let's go. What else do we have? All right. Again, this isn't going away. It's really just to put us into a space. Keep working on it. That's why it's good to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen there because I want to come back really quickly to my PowerPoint as I wrap this up and we move kind of into the Q&A. Just make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. This is what we just did. So again, if we were in person, we would have been doing this along the walls. We would have been hanging out doing the exact same thing because the idea here is just to connect the intention or the why of the activity to some type of relevance and learning interests that the young people have, which is why sometimes that basic grid, and even now you have a tool that you can take out all of those generic activities and now they could be your actual activities. And again, this type of just way of activity planners to think this out pushes them to then say, how am I being clear about the outcomes that I'm shooting for? So how is art, which I've always had to ask, how is art, or always been asked as an art instructor, how is my art activity supporting, little Pamela to get into high school? And I'm like, well, it could help her express herself. It could help her self-management. It could help her even in college and career readiness if I really want to help her with her portfolio, right? There's different ways of answering that question without just saying, oh, art is just arts and craft, right? Art is as good as you make it if you push yourself to making sure that it's explicit about the skills that are coming out of that art experience, being very clear about the materials that you need if you want to promote those outcomes. And you have a tool now in your toolbox that breaks that down. 2-minute warning, perfect, thank you. Yep, I think we're almost there. You also have tools, this is the way that it talks about it, to really think about intentionality, think about whether or not how intentional the activity type. So we've always thrown around this term of academic enrichment. Well, now you have a tool in your toolbox, your digital toolbox, that can work any programmer to say, oh, Fausto, you're a well-intentioned art programmer. How can you take what you do, or is what you already do, enrichment? And this is a way of just thinking about what that is without sending them to PD. It's just work through this tool and own it and break it down. And if you can fill out any of those prompts, you are working towards a sound, quality enrichment activity. And I'm not, again, and this all comes from the toolkit. It goes back to this idea that the tools all represent this in play. So you don't necessarily, again, you'll have access to this PowerPoint when I send it out that can help people really structure or kind of understand the why. But again, it's really done much better as a verb, which is why the tools are meant and have guidance within them, templates, grade little examples to really help inform that. And then to hit it at the top, to be even the most explicit, there are quality standards that guide how we engage and interact with young people, how we set the tone for learning or knowledge transfer. But then at the end of the day, if you're in schools or really want to be more aligned explicitly to academic standards, you have a tool in there also that pushes you into a space of, okay, Fausto, you said you're doing mural painting with young people. How is it then that connects to these more academic standards? And those standards exist. Those are out there. You just need to connect them to it. Oh, you're working with 7th through 8th graders. Have you ever looked at the art standards? Have you ever looked at, because it's really just about copying and pasting into that tool and having a really fortified, sound activity plan that gets crystallized through this bit of intentional planning. And that is about that. So again, let's open it up, open up the airwaves. I know that this is, I think we are 2 minutes over. Anybody who, I know, Amy, if you want to jump in, I don't know the policies and procedures of this, but now is the time to, any questions, again, that was quick. I know it was an hour. Any insights, happy to address them.
Hi, Fausto. I have a question regarding the SAFE activities. I always have a hard time differentiating between the difference between focused and explicit in the context of planning safe activities, sequenced, active, focused, explicit. So I got you on the line. I figured I'd ask.
I agree. No, thank you. That's a great question. That's actually why I'm actually going to go ahead and why to make the difference, because there is a bit of a gray area, is why when we do this in person, or why you now have this as a very informal cheat sheet, is that the explicit actually is the onus, I would say, is on the adult, right? On the activity designer. Because at the end of the day, it really puts us into the space of, when we were talking about those outcomes, what am I trying to do through my art class? And through my art class, or depending on the part of the sequence that I am in my art class, let's just say I'm at the beginning, I want to work on self-management because I want them to work on their own paper. I need to both also just be very focused on what I am focusing on. So in my sequence at the beginning, in that initial module, I am focusing on self-management, maybe some group skills. The E comes out in the way that you present it to the learner. So it's to say that at the end of the day, it's not just, hey, well, everybody get into a group, let's count off. It's to say we're counting off explicitly so we don't get into cliques. So this allows you to meet a new person, to be explicit more and more, even with the vocabulary that you are using that you hope will get into their head. So again, we all say self-management. All of a sudden, maybe you're going to now really want to push out regulation in that management. Then you need to be clearer with that, more explicit, that here, we really want you to think about regulating your participation by doing a 3 and me. So it also talks about how you then understand how you are structuring in that sequence the opportunity for those very different, or all of these very different skill and competencies, and how they look and are represented differently across young people, across the group dynamic, across what you're engaging them in. And I'm not saying this is easy, but it really is why it's not an easy answer. But it really puts the onus on us as a designer to be more focused and more explicit. I'm a youth soccer coach. So my best way as a soccer coach that I could say is the same idea. In my sequence, if I'm working on your dominant foot, right? Tyler could have a dominant right foot and Gail has a dominant left foot. Already I have to think about it differently. Right, about how I'm going to be. Now, at the end of the day, I need to be explicit about what I want them to do through my cones or through my sequence so that I can get them. But then I'm not deciding to assess them on shots to the goal if we were working on passing and dribbling with those dominant foot. So we always go back to, we need to know explicitly what we're trying to aim for. What is our intention through engaging them in this module? Not the whole thing. That's a logic model. That's a different activity about a meta, like what we're actually doing for the long-term outcomes. But in this kind of sequential space, it pushes us to just be very, very clear, very, again, explicit. This becomes Pee Wee Herman word of the day: explicit, intentional, right, about all these things. And that accountability structure is going to be different in your programmatic structure. So all to be said, that's why the tool is just meant to say, if you could at least own it, you're already in a good place. You're starting in a better place. And then we'll keep refining as you churn through that cycle. If that makes any sense. Did I answer your question? Please let me know if anybody has a clearer way of talking about it than I just did.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right, let me close.
Fausto, if I can
Yeah.
just say to everyone, if you haven't signed off already, if you have the chance to fill out the survey, that is how we're entered to win prizes at the end of the day today. And we're doing Q&A right now, but technically I think our time is up, but we do have Q&A for the next 20 minutes or so. Just want to say thank you again for hosting our workshop to Fausto. We greatly appreciated you sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And I know all of these tools are going to be very useful. So please don't forget to do the evaluation, and we will be sticking around for Q&A if you guys want to stick around.
Yep, happy to break down anything, any questions like that. I think someone asked about the PQA earlier. Happy to always talk about the structured process of the PQA compared to how we were just talking about youth development.
Yeah, Fausto, I was the one who asked about the PQA. So I'm a certified PQA external assessor.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Hi.
yeah, so I wanted to see if the document you shared was proprietary or if that's something that can be shared with programs that they can use to match up with the instrument.
Wonderful, Catherine. Thank you so much for asking that.
Yeah.
No, all of these, that's why you see they're in Word form.
Okay.
Like, these are yours. And
Okay.
like I said, and even as this, we help validate the SEL PQA through random processes with Weichert also. And so that doesn't even have that as explicit. So that's why I understand that even our good thinking in 2015, that's why we give you all the Word document, not the PDF. It's like
Yeah.
you can cut and paste. Obviously, you could always email me if you over save as or those tricks. But if you again, these are accessible. They're for all program. They're for capacity building versus. So I always say, like, I, as an external assessor, this is not to say that the regimen of the YPQI or the benefit of the rubric-based YPQA is great if you, again, can follow or are part of that regimen. This one is, that's why I call it a diagnostic. It's quicker. It's just a pulse check, but it follows the same research base. So if you're a PQA, this can kind of support you along the way before someone comes and assesses in a way, right? Or if you're working with someone who is clearly being assessed, right? And it's about point of service, then you could say, hey, I'm going to just pull out the welcoming environment, whatever domains you think are good from the tool 63. That does not have to be called tool 63. It could just be called the YD checklist. You can rename, you can change it. By the next time I ever talk to you, Catherine, it could be purple instead of those gray boxes, right, August? It could be whatever way you want to own it. That's why we designed it for that, which is, I hate to speed through that, but at least I have you all for that part. So again, you can put your own logo instead of the sky's the limit in a way. So.
Yeah, because I find like they're supposed to, if it's contingent on their funding, then they're supposed to do their own official self-assessment. But sometimes they're not required to do that, and it's really intimidating. So I feel like this could be a nice, clearer, not 18 pages long, which is what the PQA is. So this is really great to be able to share with them. Here's a quick that all your staff can look at and have that conversation among the entire team.
Yes, I've definitely have worked that way before, or kind of a I call this at times, and again, and if Joe was here, I would laugh. It's a YPQ light, right? It's just like it's super quick, but then it should help you. Maybe these now concepts are not new to them when they get observed later by Catherine, right? Because sometimes there's a bit of that too, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, no problem. It was so nice hanging out with everybody. Have a great conference. Thanks. So again, reach out to me for anything, those tools, if you have any problem accessing tools. Thank you so very much.
Sorry, Fausto, did you put your contact information just so everyone can see it? I don't know if you might have already done that.
Yeah, okay. Before you close the room, F Lopez. It is F as in Frank Lopez at AIR.org.
Great. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Thanks for the work you do. Talk to you all very soon.